This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
It is an immensely proud moment for me tonight to lead back into government the Liberal Party of Australia.
A personal triumph for John Howard as the coalition sweeps to power. Good evening. John Howard will be sworn in as Australia's 25th Prime Minister this week. He'll head a government which has inflicted on the Labor Party one of the worst electoral defeats in Australian history. At last count, the coalition had won 90 seats, Labor 46, with independents 4 and 8 still undecided, giving the coalition a 44-seat majority. Here's Laurie Oakes.
It was just on 9:30 last night when Paul Keating conceded that Australians had turned their backs on him and the government had been not just defeated but routed.
I think there was always an underlying view that the government had been in office a long time.
In a gracious speech to party faithful at the Bankstown Sports Club in his electorate, he congratulated John Howard.
I wish him and his government well.
And he announced that he would not recontest the Labor leadership. At 10:15 p.m, the man who will be Australia's 25th Prime Minister arrived at a Liberal celebration at a Sydney hotel to claim victory. Mr Howard repeated his election campaign theme that he intended to govern for all Australians, but he made it clear that things would change as a result of the transfer of power.
We have been elected with a mandate, a very powerful mandate, and whilst I will seek at all times unity and a common point of view, we have not been elected to be just a pale imitation of the government that we have replaced.
Even though the Liberals won enough seats to govern alone, Mr Howard announced that the coalition with the Nationals would continue and Tim Fischer would be Deputy Prime Minister. Within 40 minutes of the close of voting in the eastern states, the result was obvious.
John Howard is now the Prime Minister of Australia.
I'm going to have to run up the white flag about now, I think.
In New South Wales and Queensland especially, it was a political massacre. Candidates in what had been marginal Labor seats quickly conceded.
It's all over Red Rover.
It's been 13 great years. It's the longest I've ever held down a job. So.
But even seats regarded as safe Labor were toppling too, and ministers were biting the dust, at least 7 of them being unceremoniously ousted from Parliament, others battling to hang on. National Party warhorse Ian Sinclair summed it up.
It's got the sniff of 75 to it.
Labor Party National Secretary Gary Gray didn't disagree.
So that's 1975 all over again, isn't it?
That's correct.
The national anti-Labor swing was 6%. Labor is likely to be left with only 50 seats in a parliament of 149, a result that left the true believers stunned. At 8:20, live on national television, Deputy Opposition Leader Peter Costello phoned Mr Howard to say congratulations.
All credit to you. It's great.
Even Deputy Prime Minister Kim Beazley, who'll be the new leader with the massive task of rebuilding Labor if he can hold his West Australian seat of Brand, is fighting to hang on.
I think at the end of the day there won't be more than a couple of hundred in it either way.
Bob Hawke, who led Labor to office in 1983, said Mr Keating was part of the reason for Labor's heavy defeat.
I think he had the problem of attitude, and that was always there.
The outgoing Prime Minister remained in Kirribilli House with his family today, visited by friends like Reserve Bank Governor Malcolm Fraser.
The swing against Labor struck deep into the heart of the government, as well as the ministers already defeated. Kim Beazley, the man expected to take over from Paul Keating, is also fighting for survival. Peter Harvey with the latest.
It was a quiet massacre. The executions carried out in polling booths all over Australia. One by one, a third of Paul Keating's ministers were either unceremoniously dumped or threatened with imminent extinction. Most prominent, Attorney General Michael Lavarch.
Oh, well, I pick up the help wanted pages of the Courier Mail and start thumbing through it.
Embroiled in constant controversy, Robert Tickner lost his seat and Aboriginal affairs.
I and my supporters have done everything we could.
In South Australia, Pacific Islands Minister Gordon Bilney walked into a backyard barbecue to acknowledge the bitter reality of the night.
I believe that Australians have been conned into electing a government which will serve us ill.
The slaughter even extended to the minister who engineered the universally applauded series of Australia Remembers World War II pilgrimages. His electorate forgot Sciacca.
When you go down with your party, you go down with your party.
Communications Minister Michael Lee was regarded as one of Labor's bright young things. Trailing by 400 votes, tonight his lights are dim.
people have made the wrong decision. I think that the contribution that Paul Keating's made to Australia over the last 4 years has been enormous.
Among the other high-profile victims of the night, Administrative Services Minister Frank Walker has gone, as has Education Training Minister Ross Free and Assistant Treasurer George Gear.
I really do feel very, very bad about the number of ministerial and other magnificent colleagues who've lost seats tonight.
Gareth Evans successfully made the switch last night from the Senate to the House of Representatives, much to Labor's relief, and the party is now hoping desperately that Kim Beazley is able to retain his seat in Western Australia. Peter Harvey, National 9 News.
After Labor's devastating defeat, Paul Keating is now expected to retire from politics, forcing a by-election in his Western Sydney seat of Blaxland. Today, the outgoing Prime Minister spent the day with his family, a quiet end to an extraordinary public life. Hugh Remington has this report.
Even his harshest detractors would admit Paul Keating is one of a kind. From Bankstown in Sydney's west, out of school by 14, Paul Keating would never be just another face in the crowd. From rock and roll manager to MP at 25. A minister at 31 in Whitlam's last days. It was said he showed promise.
I am not trying to knife Bill Hayden.
He voted against Bob Hawke's first run at the Labor leadership, but soon they were partners, the Rhodes Scholar and the man who'd never been to uni, but was soon hailed world's best treasurer. He deregulated the finance markets, bullying through massive structural change with dire warnings of the cost of failure.
Once you slow the growth under 3%, unemployment starts to rise again.
And then, of course, you've really induced a depression, haven't you?
Well, then you're gone. You know, then you're a banana republic.
His tongue was his weapon of choice.
You fraud! You disgraceful, disgusting fraud!
His epic self-confidence delighting some, exasperating many.
This is a recession that Australia had to have.
By the close of the 80s, his bond with Hawke was in name only. By 91, the self-styled Placido Domingo of politics had the stage to himself, and soon, against all odds, had Australia singing his tune.
This is the sweetest victory of all.
As Prime Minister, he affronted traditionalists, but worked hard to mend fences at home and with our neighbours, insisting his last 3 years were his boldest.
It's about as good as it ever gets.
But too few believed him.
Well, when people can't afford the health insurance they want, we're going to bolt in.
And now he's gone. First, though, he has to give back the keys to Kirribilli and pack up his things out of the lodge and make way for a new political era in which he will play no real part. Hugh Remington, National 9 News.
The British tabloids were today celebrating the overthrow of the Keating government. Dubbed the Lizard of Oz, Paul Keating was accused of digging his own grave with insults and arrogance. Labor's loss was generally seen as a royal gain, with many reports highlighting John Howard's stance as a monarchist. The broadsheets were less ruthless towards Mr Keating and described Mr Howard as dull but safe. The Liberal landslide has handed Jeff Kennett the perfect opportunity for a snap state poll, but the Premier is still not committing himself. But in an amazing development, opposition leader John Brumby is already virtually conceding defeat. Simon Clark with more.
Jeff Kennett was one of 10,000 cyclists in the Great Melbourne Bike Ride, a 20-kilometre trek that took in part of the Albert Park track and left the Premier worse for wear.
Oof. Sorry. Oof, yes.
As soon as John Howard's victory was confirmed, it became obvious that Jeff Kennett's race to the polls was also underway. The only question that remains to be answered is how long that race will take, and so far, Mr Kennett is giving no clue.
Rather than calling a March 30 election, he says it's still his intention to bring back the Parliament on Tuesday week.
We'll continue to judge things here according to the climate. I haven't given much thought to it, as you can imagine. In the last 12 hours, I've been more concentrating getting myself fit to survive this ordeal this morning.
Last night, the Liberals were celebrating, even though the anti-Labor swing here was smaller than in other states. But it was still 2%, and the ALP needs a swing to it of more than 7%. Previously, John Brumby has predicted state Labor would pick up 21 seats, 3 more than it needs to win back office. But now he seems to have given up the ghost.
If we get more than 6 seats, that's a good result. I've always said that would be a good result. If we get 6 to 12, I think I've said it would be, quote, a very good result. If we get more than 12 seats, it would be a lot of superlative adjectives.
The Premier has 3 or 4 possible poll dates between now and early May, and if it's to be March 30, we'll know by Tuesday evening. Simon Clark, National 9 News.
After the break, the rest of the day's news, including another fatal bombing in Jerusalem, and Ferrari's $25 million man arrives.
And to all of you again, could I conclude on this note, thanking you sincerely for the faith, the hope, the belief, and sticking with us through these years. Thank you indeed.
I commit myself and my future government to the service of all of the Australian people. Thank you.